I want to be on school committee because I think that the process has been pretty inaccessible for a lot of people in this town. I think that when people show up because they have questions or concerns and they voice them at school committee and they're either shouted down or spoken to dismissively because they're not at every school committee meeting, that's a problem. And that ends up freezing people out of the process. And when people don't feel like they can access what's going on, they don't want to be part of it anymore. And I really think that I can change that on school committee. The skills that I bring to school committee are the fact that I've been an attorney for 15 years now. And the majority of the time I've been working in huge groups, collaborative groups of people. And the people I've been working with are completely at odds on issues. And we've had to find a way to come together in the most effective way and move forward expeditiously, and also being very aware of doing it in a budget. And that's something I've become very good at. I think also I've had to, in my current job, transform the court system that I work in into a virtual court system. We've made many mistakes and we've done things really, really well. We've had to get feedback from all different court users and community groups as well as attorneys, and really find out how we can fine-tune what we're doing to make it an accessible process. That's something that is going to need attention this year, and that's something that I have had experience doing, and that I can translate that into addressing the concerns that we have for reopening in the fall. I do think that two of the biggest things facing school committee in the fall is, one, how are we reopening? How do we do that in a way that keeps kids safe, but also gets them back to the business of learning, which is most important? How do we do that in a way that understands that not all families can accommodate a virtual school system in the same way? Making sure that their kids have the same amount of support, making sure that kids who are on IEPs and special education are getting the right support at home, and that their parents are getting the right support. Also, making sure when they come to school, they're getting the same opportunities as other children, which I'm not sure is actually going on right now. Finally, I'm very concerned about the status of race and social justice and the way we're handling it in our schools' curriculums, in that I don't think we are handling it. I've had a lot of conversations with parents whose children are of color, have different backgrounds, and the questions they're asking at home are amazing. They're very insightful, they're very smart. But I'm really concerned that our administrators aren't thinking along the same ways that our children are, and therefore they're not going to address them in school in a way that's meaningful. They're not asking the community, what has been your experience as a person of color who lives here, who accesses, every part of the school system, the police, the town hall, businesses every day. How have you experienced things? What can we work on? What do we do really well? And how do we incorporate that into what we're teaching our children? And I think that that's a really important thing that we need to take action on now.
Hi Ipswich, my name is Kate Elliott and I'm running as a write-in candidate for Ipswich School Committee. So thank you to ICAM for this opportunity to answer their questions and help share myself with Ipswich. So I'd like to answer their three questions, the first of which is, why am I running for school committee? And the short answer is, I love this town and I love the schools, and it's a real opportunity for me to serve and give back to the schools that have given my family so much. When I think about it, I love this town like I love a sibling. They drive me crazy sometimes, but I love them and I do anything for them. So it's an opportunity for me that I'm really excited about. And the slightly longer answer is that I've volunteered a lot in Ipswich in the last 10 years, and I've learned a lot and I've met a lot of people. And I've seen examples of really excellent communication and collaboration, and really been blown away by all that we can do as a town. And I've also seen instances where projects have floundered and there hasn't been a lot of direction or consensus. And I've kind of learned from all of those experiences. So the school committee is a chance for me to kind of bring those experiences and knowledge and what I've learned to help move the Ipswich schools forward. So question number 2, what skills do I bring to the table? I'd like to highlight 2 of them. And the first one is kind of what I talked about before. Those prior experiences that I have in town and those relationships that I've built, I think are a real strength for me. I'm a very reflective person, and I can truly say that I've learned from every experience that I've had volunteering in Ipswich. I have those respectful relationships and connections with people, and I reach across the aisle really well. And I think that can be an asset when we're trying to build consensus and collaborate on issues that face the schools. So the other skill I think I bring to the table is I've always had this ability to see things from all angles, any kind of issue. I just instinctively can see it from all sides. And sometimes that can be perceived as a weakness because it makes, I can be perceived as indecisive. But I see it as a strength because it makes me thoughtful. I'm a very thoughtful person and measured, and I think about things from all angles, and I'm not rash. I'm really a thoughtful leader and listen to everybody. And I think those skills are really essential to being a productive member of any committee. So those are the two skills I bring to the table. And the third question is, what are the top 2 priorities facing the school committee this year? So the first one that I see is the return to school in this kind of COVID era and beyond. The unknown of what school's going to be like in the fall, the needs of the staff and the students returning, both in the short term, but also down the road. So how, as a school district and a town, are we going to be kind of nimble and figure out how to live in this world with remote learning? And how are we going to prepare kids to live in this world where they might not only need to learn remotely, but work remotely down the road in this kind of new world we're living in? So that's a big priority I think the school committee is going to be facing this year and beyond. And the second big issue is kind of the elephant in the room, the conversation about the elementary school building project. I think I'm excited to get the conversation going again. I think we're ready. It's been a long time. And I think when I think about how to get things started, I think we need to realize that we have a lot of common ground, I think. I think most people would agree that the facilities really need to be fixed, and they're not sufficient for our students or our staff. And I think there's also a big consensus that we love our kids and we love our teachers and they deserve more. So I think that's a really great starting point, is just to start with that common ground and then move forward. And I think we need to learn from the past, but not dwell on it. So I'm excited to get those conversations going. I think it's time and it's unresolved. So I think that's a big issue I'm excited about and I'd like to get started on. So thank you for listening, and I would urge your support for me at the polls on Tuesday. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Pavitsa Needler, but most people call me Pav, and I'm running for re-election to a second term on the Ipswich School Committee. My family and I moved here in 2005, and both of our sons have gone through the Ipswich Public Schools. Alec is a member of the class of 2017 and is now a rising senior at WPI, and Evan, my younger son, was the class of 2020 who just did that amazing graduation ceremony at Crane Beach. And thank you to everyone in town who came out to support them. I'm a nurse. I've been a nurse at North Shore Medical Center in Salem for over 22 years, and I work at the birthplace with new moms and babies, and I love my job. And my husband David is an engineer at Analog Devices. So when I first ran for school committee in 2017, I ran out of a sense of gratitude for the quality education that I felt my kids were getting in the Ipswich Public Schools. My parents were both college professors at Connecticut College, so I grew up in a family that talked about education all the time and really valued it. My kids both had terrific teachers as we were going through the schools. Alec in particular has a learning disability, and he had a 504. There were times when, in middle school particularly, I did not know if he would go to college. But he had teachers who really saw his potential, and obviously support from home, and is now a double major in electrical computer engineering and robotics engineering at WPI. Evan is going to be going to Syracuse in the fall. Both of the boys really loved the fine arts programs, particularly music as they got older. Both played instruments, both sang in the choir. Evan was also a soccer player and involved in plays and musical theater. And that's one of the things I really love about our Ipswich Public Schools. Not only do the kids get a quality education, but our students are so well-rounded. They can be athletes, they can be musicians, they can be both, they can be fine arts people. And we try to find something special for each kid and help them really meet their potential. I bring to the table experience from the school committee for the last 3 years and the experience of being a parent of 2 kids who've gone through the Ipswich Public Schools. During my time on the school committee, I've served on the policy, operations, mutual concerns, and communications subcommittee. I've also been a member of working groups on field trips and Vision 2030 this past year, and I've been the school committee representative to the Payne Grant Committee for the past 3 years. I was a member of the team which negotiated our last contract with the Ipswich Educators Association, which is our teachers union, and also the contract with our TAs. And I think I'm a good listener, and I try to keep my mind open so that I can see an issue from more than just my perspective. The 2 top priorities I see the school committee and the schools facing in the coming year are the reopening of our schools to the kids and staff in a safe way, and the future of our elementary schools. So much of what the schools in Massachusetts, including Ipswich, will be doing in the fall will be determined by the Commissioner of Education. And you've all, if you're a parent of a school child, have gotten an email from our superintendent, Brian Blake, I think on Tuesday, which talked about what we know so far about what they're expecting as we go forward. We'll be getting more guidance as the summer goes on. We've also been meeting the superintendents and school administrators and the school committee since March and discussing what plans will be going forward. Obviously, we want our staff and our students to be safe. That's one of our big priorities. So we'll be seeing where things go as the summer goes forward. As things are getting worse in other parts of the country, Massachusetts, which has done a good job with the lockdown, sees our numbers dropping. So, optimistic that we may have the kids back in the schools safely this fall, but we'll have to see what happens as the summer goes on. As for the elementary schools, before we can go forward to the MSBA and ask for their assistance with another project, we need to get the community united behind a project. I think that what we need to do to get there is to bring in a professional mediator, someone who is a neutral party, an outside observer, who can help us to find common ground, get past the unresolved issues, and get a project that everyone can unite behind so that we can go forward. We were working on this in Vision 2030, the working group I was a part of this past year. We were doing visioning exercises and trying to imagine what Ipswich education would look like in 10 years for our students and for our educators. We had done visioning exercises with the school committee, with the school administrators, and the next steps were to be doing those with all of the staff in all of the schools and then with the community. Our plan had been to do the visioning exercises with the staff in the schools in March, but then we went into lockdown, so everything had to stop. But we do plan and hope to go forward with that as soon as possible because we all know that we need to get moving on a solution for our elementary schools. I'd just like to thank you for letting me work on behalf of the children and community of Ipswich. I really enjoyed my time on school committee. I would love an opportunity to have another 3 years, hopefully to get us through the schools and this COVID pandemic. The elementary schools, pardon me. And so I'd just like to ask for your vote and to remind you that early voting is still happening on Friday until noon and on Monday, and then regular voting on Tuesday at the YMCA, but only from 10 to 2. So don't forget to go out and vote, and thanks.
Hello, my name's Greg Stevens, and I'll be on the ballot for school committee on Tuesday, June 30th. I've been a member of the school committee for the last 10 months after being appointed by the select board and school committee last summer to fill a vacant seat. Prior to joining the school committee, I spent 6 years as a member of the FEFIs, responsible for management and oversight of the trust assets left after the sale of the Little Neck property. I have 4 kids in the school district. I have a senior, a freshman, an 8th grader, and a 6th grader, and that's the real reason why I wanted to get involved with the school committee from the beginning, just to help out in any way that I could. I think my background in finance helps me be an analytical problem solver, and I think that's an important trait to have on any board or committee. Being able to dig deep into the data to come up with solutions to help solve some of the issues that, in this case, our schools face. and our schools face some pretty big issues going forward. Uncertainty over budgets, specifically outside funding beyond our local tax revenue, is going to be a huge hurdle for us to overcome in the coming years. We're already dealing with it. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the schools and the town were forced to slash money from our budgets just at the last minute, literally 2-3 weeks ago. Fortunately for the schools, we were able to lean on the prudent financial management of our override from 2015 and use funds that we had set aside in our stabilization fund. That allowed us to really minimize cuts to programs and offerings that had been put into the budget prior to being told we had to cut back. So uncertainty over budgets going forward will be big. How do we manage that with the resources we have and the resources that are available to us? So that's going to be a big challenge. A more immediate challenge is, what does school and education look like in the fall? After some initial guidance from the state tells us that kids will have to deal with masks and social distancing at the very least when school starts, how does that impact teaching and learning? If we have to move into another remote learning model, how do we do that? What does a hybrid model look like? And how do we assess whether or not it's working and whether our kids are getting the education that they need and deserve? I will say that our district did an amazing job rolling out a remote learning plan from scratch back in March. And that included getting technology into homes that didn't have it. And they've continued to expand that offering and will have an enhanced remote learning product ready to go should we need it, and we likely will. And finally, we're all aware of the school facilities, and it's a town-wide problem. What do we do with what we have, and how do we plan for the future, and how do we develop a consensus around school buildings and locations and configurations and things like that? So that's going to be a project that the school committee will need to tackle in the coming year and beyond. I think those are the three critical things we're facing now. Immediate terms, things like budgets and remote learning models, and then the next step would be dealing with our facilities and how do we get our facilities plan back on track going forward. So I want to thank everyone that supported me over the last 10 months. It's been an interesting journey. It's a very steep learning curve. It's been great to be a member of the committee, and I hope all of you will support me on Tuesday, June 30th, and I would appreciate your vote. Thank you very much. Have a great day.